Hello and welcome to Tell Me About Your Game, the show where we talk with new independent designers of tabletop and board games to give them the exposure that they deserve. Today our guest is Ed Wedig, the designer of Vector Cycles. Ed, welcome to Tell Me About Your Game.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Ed, tell me about your game. What's the elevator pitch?
So, Vector Cycles is a competitive hacker racing game. Players are racing across a grid from an access port to the central core and then back out to an access port. Along the way, they are going to be drawing paths that other players can't cross. So, there's a little bit of a tactical element to the game of trying to block each other or get ahead.
Okay, so why did you design this game? What was your inspiration for it?
Well, the original inspiration would be something like Tron Light Cycles, one of my favorite classic Disney films. But I wanted to make my own twist on that kind of a game. I wanted a racing game. I wanted something not like grid, so mine is more hex based, and I also wanted to do something with dry erase markers.
Oh, okay, you know, games with dry erase right now and roll and writes and similar games are pretty popular,
Yes.
so not a bad thing. It's also just it's got that fun tactual feel where you're actually
Mm.
drawing on the board. I've always
Right.
enjoyed them. So who's the audience for this game? Who do you see it appealing to?
So I'm targeting like families. I want a game that younger kids, probably as young as 9 or 10, could play with their parents and both have an enjoyable experience.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something. When my son was younger, looking for games that would appeal to him was a very high priority at that
Yeah,
point in my
that's one of the
life.
reasons I got into game design was when my son was younger, a lot of kids games were pretty boring for adults. So I started working on games where I was enjoying it and he was enjoying it.
Yeah, I guess you had those experience that I had when he was younger. I was like, that is barely even a game.
Mhm.
We will not be exposing him to that. Candyland was
Yeah.
forbidden.
Oh, yeah, Candyland, there's no game there.
So other than Tron Light Cycle, were there any other board games or even video games that you took inspiration from while you were designing Vector Cycles?
Um, there was other racing games, that I took some inspiration. Some of the power-up game or power-up cards, are from, like, video games, um, and, yeah, basically from, other racing games and video games.
Okay. So I know that when I've been designing my games, I have what I've always thought of as like the core design principles or the non-negotiables, the things that I had in mind from the beginning that no matter where my game went, there are certain core things that were just not going to change. So did you have any of those in mind when you were started working on vector cycles?
A lot of my designs have a core principle of you're not gonna get what you want, you must use what you receive. So in vector cycles, you're going to be getting movement and initiative cards. They're never going to be the numbers you need, never going to be the numbers that you want, but you got to make do with what you get.
So it sounds like there's I remember one of the things when I was studying game design early on, there was always the big decision maker was, is this game going to be decision first followed by luck, or luck
Mhm.
first followed by decision? So it sounds like the second one is where vector cycle
Yeah,
falls in.
this is luck followed by decision.
Okay, cool. I have to say I always preferred that that design
Mhm.
too. Anytime I take an action, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope this works. Never one of my favorite design elements. It works in certain games, but generally
Yes,
I
yes.
prefer the luck first followed by decision.
Right.
Um,
There's enough flexibility in vector cycles that players can usually work out a solution to any problems they come into. It may not be their best option, but they'll at least be able to find something to do.
So it almost sounds like there might be a slight, for lack of a better term, optimization puzzle that players are handed. Would you say that's a fair
Yeah, a
description?
little bit. There is definitely some optimization puzzle in the game of trying to use the cards that you've been given to get where you need to go.
And how would you describe the player interaction in Vector Cycles? Is it high, medium, low?
Um, it's medium to high.
Okay.
There's portions of the game where there's not a lot of interaction, especially early game, but later in the game, mid game, and late game, there's going to be a lot more player versus player interaction.
Okay. And I'm sure you'd be able to demonstrate that when we get to actually showing off the game.
Yes.
What do you think are the key rules and mechanics that create Vector Cycles identity that allows it to stand out?
Um, Key rules. Well, there is players do a card drafting mechanic, very
Mhm.
similar to Sushi Go, to get the cards that they start the turn with. And then they must decide from the cards they received whether they use a card as either their movement or as initiative. Higher initiative means they can go first in the turn, but also a higher value means they could draw a longer line segment. So they must weigh against, do they want to go early or do they want to go further?
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's always a fun
Mhm.
element when you have the a choice gives you a lot of ability in one area, but punishes you in another area. Definitely one of the things I enjoy. I one of the things I like decisions that make me groan, where I feel
Mhm.
like I'm always giving
Yeah.
something up.
Yep.
So how would you describe the fun? Where is the fun in Vector Cycles? What's going to keep people coming back to it?
Um, I think the fun in my game is about trying to figure a way of using what you've been given, because there is a puzzle to that. If you might need a segment of four, but you were giving like a card that's a five or a six, well, okay, if I move the full, say, six, where does that put me? Becomes my options later on? Players should start thinking more than a turn in advance if possible, that where is that going to put them at the end of this turn? What are their options going to be on that future turn?
Okay, interesting. All right, so I think now's a good time to actually demo the game. So let's
Okay.
pop in. So here we have the board. What are we seeing here?
Mhm. Okay. So the board is a hexagon with all the dots. I call them nodes. Um, on a player's turn, or sorry, at the start of the game, the players are going to be starting from one of these six access ports. These are the red stars around the outside edge. Now, there are a number of green areas, including the central core. The goal of the game is for a player to draw a path from an access port to the central core and then back out to any of the access ports. But all of the green areas, including the central core, will give players a power up card, and they can use those to basically break the rules of the game temporarily. There's also a number of walls around the board that will block kind of direct shots. So players have to think about their path and how they're going to maneuver around both the other players and the obstacles in their way. One of the rules in vector cycles is every time you draw a new path segment, you must change direction. So you can't just draw one straight long line. You have to kind of zigzag around.
Okay. And I see some of the green areas are, not toward the central core. So
Yes.
There might be
So
some
there are these
benefit to not
ones around
taking a
the
direct
outside
path.
edge. Right. A player may decide, instead of going directly for the core, to go around the outside and build up some power-up cards that they can use later in the game. One of the other things about vector cycles is each player is going to be playing a pair of cycles, and they will start at different starting locations depending on the player count. So you might
Okay.
use one for offense and go straight for the core and use the other one for defense, or try and put one in another player's way while your primary cycle goes and grabs the core. The only rule is the one that actually goes through the core has to be the one to escape.
Sure. So that suggests that players' lines cannot cross one another. Is that accurate?
Players can't cross another player's line unless they use a power-up card to do so. They can cross their own line, including the line of their other cycle.
Okay. All right. So I know you have a couple of other scenes set up to
Mhm.
sort of demonstrate things. You want to load them up right now?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
What are we
so
seeing?
this is approximately mid-game. We can see right here where the purple player has actually reached the core, and now they need to start uh, planning their movement to get back out to one of the access ports. And they have a couple choices. They could start moving to the right over here, but green has both of their cycles over here that could be in their way. If they have a card that allows them to go straight, well, straight ahead is the red player, so they may want to go to the left. But the left, I mean, they have their other cycle over here, but they can pass through that path. So they would have a choice on how they want to leave the central core. One of the things they can do in vector cycles is they can make what's called a tight turn. I'll show it right now. So a normal turn would be drawing a line something like that. A tight turn is where you're turning kind of back on yourself. So the purple player could draw a tight turn and come back over here and maybe get back to this access port before the red player could intercede. It will depend on the initiative order of that turn if the red player could potentially get in their way.
Is there a cost to doing a tight turn?
The cost is you take the value of the card and you subtract one from it because it
Okay.
slows you down a little bit.
Okay. So
So
again,
in
there's
this
another cost
case,
benefit analysis.
exactly.
Okay. Can you leave on the same access port you came in, or does it have to be a different access port?
It can be any of the access ports, including one that another player has started at.
Oh,
The access port node does not block like the other nodes do. So the purple player could escape through this one where the red player started,
okay.
as long as they don't cross the line that the red player has over here.
Can players, let's just say, that red section
Hmm.
right here, does this, is this dot blocked also because a red
Yes,
line is touching it? Okay.
yes.
Okay. So only the access
One
port
of the
has that
things
special rule.
in yeah, one of the things in vector cycles is it always has to be obvious where your cycle actually is, and I'm trying to do that without actually having a cycle token.
Right.
Um, yes, so the actual red player's token or cycle is at that node, so that node is blocked, but the ones directly adjacent to it are not.
And even though you can cross your own lines, is it safe
Mhm.
to assume you can't double back on your own lines?
You can double back as long as you move completely through. So what you can't do is stop within your line or the line of your other cycle.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so yes, so it always has to be clear where your cycle is.
Okay. So your cycle always has to end on a dot, basically, where you've never been before.
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it. All right, I understand you have one more scene you want to show us.
Yes.
Okay.
So here we are at very late in the game. Purple is positioned to escape. They would only need to draw a line from here to the access port here. But red is actually in a position to block purple. So on this turn, it would really depend on the initiative order on whether red draws a line far enough down to block the purple player, or if purple can move through the access port and escape.
So again, not knowing the range of the movement cards, which we're going to go over in a moment,
Yeah.
I would assume it would be in purple's best interest to play as low
As
an
high
initiative
initiative,
card as
well,
possible,
they would want
as long as it gets
as
to the
high
end.
initiatives
Oh,
because
high initiative,
higher
yes.
initiative goes first.
Correct, yes,
Um,
that's right.
right. And the difficulty for red is they would want a high initiative, but then they also need to make sure that their movement card is at
Is enough.
least 1, 2, 3, at least a 4. Otherwise, they can't draw a line far enough to reach there.
Right. Okay. Purple's other option then could be if red could get just close enough to
Right.
play a card that's got maybe has a low initiative but a high movement, so it could just circle
Mhm.
around whatever red is
Right.
trying to do.
Right. I mean, if they are blocked going this way, they could potentially
Go back to
go
the
over this
Yep.
way and back to that access port.
And that actually seems like a pretty safe move because it's pretty far away from red, and red would have to do some real maneuvering.
And red would have to race to catch up to them.
Yeah. Okay. So again, it seems to me, a pure novice in this game, and by novice, someone who has never played it at all, that purple's probably in a pretty good position right here.
Yes. Yes. Purple is in a really good position this late in the game.
Okay.
Um,
So we've mentioned the speed and initiative cards a couple times. So I think it's
right.
a good time to take a look at those. So why don't you explain how these work?
So the initiative cards have a value anywhere from 2 to 8, and it's a bell curve hovering around 4. So they're the most number 4 cards and the least 2 and 8 cards. There's only one 8 card in the deck. Um, each of the cards has a big number and a smaller number. The big number is both the movement and the initiative number, and the small number is to avoid any uh, conflicts. So if two players play a 4 card, there's only one 4.5. So there'll be a 4.5 and maybe a 4.3.
Right.
So the 4.5 would go first.
Okay. So I think
And as I
I need a
said,
little clarification. So
mhm,
you had said a higher initiative was better.
yes.
So
So
an eight
initiative goes from a
initiative would
high
be an
value down,
but an eight initiative would be an eight speed also, right? Then
but you're only using the card for initiative. It doesn't, you then have another card to use for your actual movement.
oh, I misunderstood. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, you're not using a high initiative and for your movement. It's either or. So if you want to move, say, 4 or let's say 5 in a move, and you only have 1 5, you can play that for initiative, but then you're not moving 5. You're going to have to use one of your other cards. So you have
Okay.
to kind of weigh, uh, do I want to go first, or do I want to move the number I need?
Okay, but it is conceivable then, for example, that someone could have like an 8 initiative and a 7 move and play both.
Yes, it is possible.
Okay,
But
got it.
actually, higher movement cards are harder to use, especially late in the game, because you will now have to avoid all of the paths that the other players have drawn.
So for a movement card, do you have to use the full movement?
Yes,
Ah, okay.
but there is a power-up card that allows you to adjust your card up or down by 1. So if you did get, you had that 8 initiative and say a 6 and a 7 for your movement cards, you could use the power-up card to knock those down so that maybe you can use that number.
Okay, and then going back to something you described earlier. So let's just say I
Mhm,
played that 8 card as a movement. I need to
mhm,
go 8 spaces and it needs to be 8 in a straight line.
correct.
But the next card, movement card, has to change direction.
Yes.
Okay, so I can definitely see what you're saying. Late in the game, an
Mhm.
8 movement card could be very hard to pull off.
Now, if you have a clear shot ahead of you, that's great.
Right.
Like in this situation, purple could use an 8 movement because you do not need to get exact number to get to the access port. You just have to pass through it. So as soon as they hit that red star access port, the game would be over, and you don't have to draw the rest of the line.
Okay, so that's the only
But
time you
that is
don't
the only
need to use the full
instance
movement.
where you're not using the full movement.
Okay, got it. Okay, and you've mentioned the power-up cards a couple of times, so let's take
Mhm.
a look
Yep.
at a couple of those cards and explain how those are working
Mhm.
for us.
So, as I said before, uh, normally a player cannot pass through the lines of another player or one of these gray walls. Actually, the gray walls on the board. But if you have the pass through power up card, you can play that to pass through any number of lines or walls during that movement segment. As long as you are completely through, you don't stop within somebody else's line or within a wall, you can make that draw that line through everything and come out to a brand new node.
Okay,
And then
that's
the other card you have up is the adjustment card. So that is, you can use that to adjust one of your movement cards up or down by 1. Um, 8 is the maximum, so you can't adjust an 8 card up, but you could adjust it down to a 7, or a 5 get down to a 4, or if you had a 2, you could adjust it up to a 3.
okay. It definitely seems like there's some pretty interesting tactical decisions here, along with the strategic
Mhm.
decisions of when to use your cards. Uh,
Right.
but it's the rules definitely seem pretty straightforward, and it sounds like it would be pretty easily accessible to players who are not necessarily experienced board gamers.
Right. Yeah, that was a design consideration from the early stages. Was I wanted to keep the rules simple enough that a younger child with parent assistance could understand.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So, Ed, I want to thank you for sharing your game
Mhm.
with us. If anyone who's watching is interested in learning a bit more about vector cycles, where could they go?
So information about vector cycles is available on my website, which is edwedig, WEDIG.com. A number of my games are posted there, um, including there's a sell sheet and a promotional video.
Okay, and I will include the link to that website in the show notes.
Mhm.
So, where is this in development? What is your eventual goal for this game?
So I will be pitching this to publishers once I get the rules locked down a little bit further.
Okay. So any potential publishers who are watching this also, please
Mhm.
please reach out to Ed if Vector Cycles looks interesting to you. So, Ed, I'd like to thank you once again for being on the
Mhm.
show. I'd like to thank everyone
Thank
for
you.
watching. And if anyone watching is a new and independent board or tabletop designer, please reach out to me. My contact information will be in the show notes also. We also have a Discord channel where all of the designers who have been or will be on the show gather and they chit chat about their games and they share information and get feedback from one another. So, Ed, thank you again. And
Yep.
thank you to all the viewers, and everyone have a great day.